So basically, you see the format, how it is getting stored, right? So basically, it is storing the pages. The collection of pages are getting stored in the index-based notation, one is. And the other one is a page group, which is using the subscript as a string notation. So here, the index which is passed inside a page group, it is a subscript, whereas this is going to have a list. So whenever you need to point to a particular record, okay, if you want to refer a particular group, a particular record, straight away you can use the subscript if you know the subscript. Okay, so this basically a key which is going to indicate which particular page I need to use it. So that key is something which may generate certain dynamically, and that key specific, that if you know the key, if you're aware of key, then it is easy to find it out of this group, which is easiest one. So it will straight away go to that particular page group. Okay, so it is going to, out of this collection, it is easy to find it out which, if you know the key, it is easy to find it out which particular page I need to go with. Okay, so if you are aware of this key, okay, if you consider this as a key, and then in that scenario it is easy to find it out. All right, so in that scenario, if something where you are maintaining a list where you are aware of those keys, okay, so the subscript that you are sending, so that is something which will denote the unique ID, and you might have stored somewhere that key to identify. So in such scenarios, you will go for the page group. Okay. So this, out of these two, the easiest one is definitely the page list. Okay. So in this particular scenario, if you see, obviously, when you are entering the addresses, multiple addresses that you are adding it, so something, if you are giving this option of getting the input taken, so this is something confusing for the end users. It doesn't require to provide an input to store an address. So what does this input stands for? Okay, so this is something complex. So basically, wherever you write down that logics in the background, in only in those scenarios you will use the page group. Whereas the particular scenario where you need to take multiple addresses as an input, you always go with a page list. You doesn't use the page groups in general for the front end purpose. So wherever you are capturing something in the front end, so you're not utilizing the page group, because that is confusing for the users to provide the key. Okay, so you are not you cannot pass the key in front. You're not telling to the end user that you are a developer, or else there is a background structure which is dependent on this key. Okay, so something which doesn't confuse us the end users. Okay, so in general, page group properties are used for a backend purpose, to maintain the information, the collection of information for the backend purpose. For the front end which you take as an input, so for those scenarios we always go for a page list. Okay, so that page list inputs, you will have the record of information, multiple records of information. You will keep on incrementing one after another. Okay, so no need of explicitly you need to take care of when you are deleting it, whatever the which particular record will be deleted. So by default, the index which is matching, that can be deleted. Okay, so it is easy to iterate on each and every object when you are going for a page list. So you will go for a page list of items to iterate one after another, and it will read from the index 1. Okay, and if you repeat the iteration, okay, so if you are repeating the iteration, the each and every iteration is an index. Okay, and that index will always starts from 1. It's not starting from 0 as like other programming languages. It starts always from 1. Okay, so this index keeps incrementing, and that is the reason it supports the sorting as well, whereas the page groups doesn't support the sorting feature. Okay, so whenever you are using the page group, it doesn't support the sorting. Okay, so you need to think whether you require the sorting or not. If you doesn't require the sorting, because that is not supportable for the page groups, so anything which is visible to the end users, so for those kind of scenarios you will by default go for a page list. Anything which is going to store in the background, which helps us to easy for navigation or easy to search, for those things you will go for a page groups. Okay, so majorly I can say this is meant for the coding and development purpose. For development specific rules that you are creating, which is maintained in the backend but not in the forehand. Okay, so that is something you can use for the page groups and anything which is visible to the end user. Most of the scenarios I'm seeing. Okay, so scenarios where you can eased, easily take the inputs. Okay, so take the inputs from the users. Okay, and you are going to do the sorting. So this is also supported in the page list. So in such scenarios you will go for the page list. All right, easy for iteration as well. Okay, this is easy for iteration, whereas this requires whenever you are doing the iteration on this page group, it is going to see for the index which is a subscript and you doesn't know what is the subscript. That's a key. Okay, so and the key is always unique and that is something you are not aware of. Okay, so if I want to see something on this list, I will iterate one after another. Even I can iterate over here, but the subscript is something unique. Okay, so this is something called as subscript. Okay, the under the parenthesis, whatever you see, it is a string for the page group, and that string is always a unique. Okay, so that is something a string which is called as a subscript. We call it as a subscript. Okay, whereas in the list we call it as a subscript is a index which is a integer. All right, so integers, so it is going to keep on incrementing for the iterations as well. All right, I hope it is clear between these two.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all clear.
Okay. Okay. Now moving on. So yesterday we were discussing about the page group, how it stores. So in this scenario, let me see the configuration once again. So as I have mentioned here, this page group doesn't supports the sorting. Okay. So that is the reason I have taken this sorting option from here, because that is doesn't support for the page groups. Let's make this as rows always editable. And as and when you click on this add item, it should add a new item by taking the input, which is a key. All right, and let's submit it once again and save it. Okay, some issue I think, but ideally it should display this page group here. It is getting added here. Okay, you can see here the work office add hh. You can see this is where how it is getting saved. Okay, but somehow the section is not getting refreshed. So this is not getting refreshed. Let me see after continue and come back again. Okay, we do one thing. I'm going to add a small action button here, and I'm going to refresh it explicitly. Let's see this option will work out. So I'm going to add a new button which is named as a refresh. This button name is okay. So here you can specify the text what you want to appear on the button name, and on the action I can specify the action set as on click I want to refresh this particular section. Okay, so I'm just doing this explicitly, adding the refresh this section to refresh this particular table. Okay, so just I want to see whether this is something blocking, and on click of add item key, it should be refreshed. Ideally it's not refreshing, otherwise this refresh button should also come over here. Coming back again. All right, so now I'm going to add key to submit, refresh. Okay, I doesn't want to waste the time, so if it is not happening, let's see later. Okay. Anyway, but the structure will be in this way. So in the clipboard, as I have shown you, as like we see the address list, which will comprises of the collections which are specified in the index-based notation. It will take the index as the key which you are specifying as a unique value. Okay, so there are other areas where we will see the page groups, how it gets stored. So we'll come back to that when we discuss on that area. Okay, but this is how it is going to store it. That is what you need to know. Okay, so whenever you are having a collection, and that collection of a page group will be using the subscript as a string notation. All right, now moving on to the other aspects. So here we can specify certain conditions based on certain things. Okay, so here you have an option for every control like visibility conditions. Okay, so conditionally you want to display, so that is something you can select always. Okay, so you have that option, the visibility always, or you want to make it based on some condition expression or condition when rule. Okay, so condition expression will tell us which condition to satisfy if to display this control expected salary. Okay, in order to display this expected salary, you need to select the currency name, let's assume. Okay, so here I can specify the currency name. Okay, so I'm specifying the currency name if it is not equal to empty. Okay, as and when the currency name is not equal to empty, then I want to display this particular thing. All right, so here this is something I'm writing some condition for this currency name. Okay, so whenever the currency name is selected, then only I need to display this particular text control. Okay, so expected salary control is something I'm specifying the currency name is not equal to empty. All right, so this way we can make this condition visibility. Okay, and similarly you have an option for making the disable condition as well. So conditionally you want to disable it, so based on some variable which you are conditionally checking. Okay, so here you can specify the way how you want to check. Okay, so currency name equal to, greater than, less than. Okay, so these are all the things that you can utilize for writing down a condition expression. Okay, so condition expression is writing down a logic of how to when to display this control based on the condition criteria which is matched. Okay, so I'm specifying whenever you are selecting the currency, then only you display this property, this control. Okay, so now let's see the currency name. Whenever I'm selecting, it should be by default the one which is select, right? So this is something, whenever I do select a select, it should be blank in the background. Okay, it should not be the one which is select. Okay, so if you see here, as in when I do this select option here, so what happens on my clipboard, you can see here this is coming as select, right? This is not the right behavior. So it should not come select over here. It should be blank, right? So it should not come as long as you are selecting the currency. Okay. So if you see the clipboard, in the clipboard, what you can see, the PY work page will have this currency name as, let me refresh. It should be select, right? Select, refresh, refresh. Okay, I think because of the action that I have configured here. So if you remember, yesterday I have configured one action, right? In this flow action, I have this apply data transform where I'm initializing always. As and when it is refreshing, it is coming with this value. So I'm going to delete this particular data transform from here. I'm just saving it. Okay. Now I will just refresh it once again. And now all right, so now as I have refreshed it now, and if I select something USD and then come back to select, so it should be coming as a value as select. So in this case ID under the PY work page, so you can see the currency name is still AUD. It should be select actually. Okay, so it should be select actually because the currency name is something which I am not populating. All right, so let's see after continue what will the value will be on the clipboard on PY work page, right? So the currency name should be select. Okay, so as and when you are moving to the next screen, the values are automatically getting saved. Okay, so this value is getting saved. Ideally the currency name should be blank. Okay, it should not be getting the value as select. Okay, it should be something blank, right? So that is something we have to define on the property, the currency name. Okay, so earlier we have defined the local list table type. Okay, but whenever you are seeing in the clipboard or in the database it should be blank, then you have to go for an option called prompt list. So prompt list will tell us two values. One is the standard value which is getting saved in the database, and the other one is a prompt value what you are seeing in front of the end user. Okay, so let's say for the end user I'm going to display the select option, but ideally it will be blank in the background. Okay, so this way I can populate it. Okay, so here let's say I'm going to use the INR, the standard value, and the prompt is also the same, USD and USD. So in this way, if I define it, what happens is it is going to display the select. Whenever you are selecting the value, it will display the empty in the background. All right, now let's see that back, go back again. All right, and now I select AUD, you can get it. And as and when I select, so you can see the value is getting disappeared because we have included the condition expression on this screen, on this section, where the expected salary should not visible if the value is empty, the currency name is empty. Okay, so this conditionally it is calling, and this condition if it is true it is disappearing. Okay, so that is how the system can check the conditions on the controls. Similarly, you can add the condition on the complete layout as well. Okay, so something like you have certain dependencies with this layout to display. Okay, so complete layout should not be displayed, let's assume. Okay, so if I can keep a condition visibility on the complete layout itself. Okay, so if I keep the same condition whatever I have defined for the expected salary. Okay, so I can add this, let's say currency name is not equal to empty. So the same condition which I have used for that control. So I'm just making it not visible. Okay, so not equal to empty. I'm just giving double quotes here. Just this is a simple expression where whenever it is not empty, then I'm going to display the not going to display this particular layout. Okay, so on a layout you can include a condition. All right, so what happens as and when I do a select, So you can see this complete section with the complete layout, which you see the last name, address, and postal code disappeared. Okay, so this disappeared as and when you select this one. Okay, so that is something you can add a conditions applicable directly on the layout as well. All right. And whenever you want to make it as the field as required, you have this option called required. Okay, so you can make this required conditionally as well. You can have an option to make it conditionally as well. Okay, so this is something, if you make it as required always, you will see there is a asterisk symbol on the label. Okay, so date of birth followed by an asterisk. So this asterisk is a mandatory field. So you can see for these two are marked as mandatory. Okay, so this is going to display the client side validation. Okay, so that means client side validation in the sense, if you doesn't enter anything for this one, if you doesn't enter anything by default, as in when you come to the next screen, it is going to display that error, something like this, value cannot be blank. Okay, so as and when you come out of that control, it will display the error immediately. Okay, so this value is blank, so this is something a client side validation. Okay, so without clicking the continue option, whenever the errors are displayed, so those are called as client side validation. Okay, that means it is not going, the request is not going to the server and then the errors are not displayed. It is immediately getting, the errors are immediately displayed. So let's say if I'm removing the test, immediately you are getting this error. Okay, if you are clicking on the continue and then you are getting the error on the screen, then that is called as a server side validation. Okay, so the one which you see, these are client side validations, which is a marked as mandatory to enter, so those are not filled. All right, so this is a client side validation which you can keep it on the controls. So that way you have this option available whenever you are keeping a condition expression, when to trigger it. So if you select this option, run visibility condition on client, if you select this option, it is going to display that particular condition immediately. Okay, so this is something running on the client itself. Okay, so if you uncheck it, by default it will look for as and when you click on submit. Okay, so it will execute it you based on the refresh conditions. Okay, so here if I remove this particular thing, okay, so I need to explicitly refresh it. Okay, so if this refresh is not available, it is not going to work. All right, so if I remove this way, okay, and now if I see by clicking on a refresh for this, all right, now if I select this particular select option, so you can see this is still there. Okay, the value is still there because I have not checked this condition. Okay, so it is not running on the client, it is not running directly on the client. If I select this option, what happens, it will register by, whenever this condition expression is there, it will automatically give me, even if I doesn't keep a refresh on it. So what happens, it will give me that explicitly. Okay, so as and when I do this AOD, it is coming right, and if I go for select, it is immediately not updating it. Okay, so you can see this is immediately displaying me or hiding it because I have selected that option. Okay, so whereas if you see, if I go to AUD, still it is showing me the symbol placeholder. Why? Because it is not posted to the clipboard. It is there, it is something which is displayed to the end user, but it is not getting saved on the clipboard. In the clipboard, it still remained the same value. Okay, it still remained the select value itself. Okay, so it is getting posted to the clipboard by using the action event. Okay, so something like if you have to post the value which you are selecting onto the clipboard, so you need to have an action called post value. Okay, so if you want to post this value to the clipboard, as in when you select it, you want to post the value to the clipboard. Okay, that means you are going to save that value into the clipboard. So it is the one, this is the action that you need to use it. Now submit and save it. So you can see the action which is performed is now post value. Now you can see the value gets posted. Okay, so now if you select USD, it gets posted to the clipboard. Okay, it gets posted only to the clipboard, not refreshing it. Okay, so you can see this refresh is not automatically happening. Okay, so this refresh is something dependent. This is something we have to explicitly add that refresh. Okay, so this is not refreshing automatically. All right, so this is something posted to the clipboard. You can see on the clipboard by going to the py work page, you can see the value should be coming as USD. It should come with this USD value on change, or is it on select? On change post value, right? So this post value should post the value to the clipboard. Ideally it should post the value to the clipboard. That is the behavior of the post value. Okay, so once you have selected or you are changing the event, it should post the value immediately. In this case it is not posting it immediately. Let's continue and see. Now it is posted. Somehow this is not refreshing properly, but yeah, it should be posting the value here immediately. Okay, so as and when you change it, it should post the value. That is the behavior expected. Okay, so as and when you are changing this value, you need to refresh it immediately. Okay, so the other way that you can use is, so here on this particular control. Okay, so on this particular control you have something called as okay, this option. Okay, so anyway, like run visibility condition on client already had explained, right? Okay, fine. So yeah, on the dynamic layout you have to explicitly, let's say if you are changing it and you have something defined as a condition expression on the layout. Okay, and here you have this option run visibility condition on the client. So that is the reason, as in when you are selecting the select value here, this is disappearing. Okay, so straight away it gets disappeared. Okay, so because this run visibility condition on client is available, so right now if I uncheck this option, submit it and save it, so what happens, it doesn't work as expected. Okay, so if you see AOD, so you see explicitly we need to refresh it. Okay, now if I go back to select, it is not disappearing from here. Okay, so it's not disappearing because the run visibility condition on the client is removed. Okay, so explicitly the refresh should happen, then only it will work. Okay, if you refresh the whole section, then it will remove that, it is going to check that particular condition. Or else there is one more option available on the dynamic layouts, is something like refresh condition. So you can specify when to refresh. Okay, so you can specify the value, something like currency name changes. So as and when the currency name changes, you need to refresh this particular layout. Okay, so I'm explicitly saying currency name changes. So as and when the currency name changes, it should refresh the layout. Okay, so this complete layout will be refreshed as and when the currency name gets changed. Okay, so let's see how it works. Refresh. So now let's select one of this AUD. Okay, this is fine. INR, it is fine. This should be select. Client side scripting is not enabled or what? Really, this browser settings are updated somewhere.